when I have two different denominators, I want to get rid of the denominators with the lowest common denominator. So I have a divide by 5. Here I have a divide by 3, divide by 5. So I'm going to multiply by 3, multiply by 5. That times 5 cancels that divide 5. I still have a times 3, which I have to account for. Here there's no divides canceling any of these times, so we're going to have to do 3 times 15, which is 45. Here the divide 3, divide 5 cancel both of those, so we're just left with times 2. And here we have no divides canceling those times, so we end up with 15 times 8. And that's going to give us 15 times 8 is 120. So now we've gotten rid of all the divides. This equation ends up being a little bit easier to deal with. So I'm going to expand the brackets, combine my like terms. Okay, and so I end up, then I'm going to move all my x's to one side. So this is going to be plus 21 equals 2x plus 120. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides, subtract 2x from both sides. I end up with 1x equals 99, and I've solved the equation. When we have x in the denominator, we have to start thinking of these x's as just numbers. We're just dividing by x, and really I don't like all these divides. So I'm going to get rid of the divides with a times. I'm going to times by 5 to get rid of the divide by 5. I'm going to times by x to get rid of the divide by x. So here I'm just left with 2. Here nothing cancels, so I have to multiply the 3 with 5x. Here the divide x and times x cancel, so I'm just left with a times by 5, so I end up with 15. And here I'm going to end up with times by 8, so I end up with 40x. So solving for x here, moving all the x's to one side. I'm going to subtract x's from both sides, 15 x's on both sides, so I end up with 25x on this side. I'm going to end up with negative 13 on this side. Get rid of the times 25 by divide 25. The solution for x I end up with is x equals negative 13 over 25. So there's my solution for x. So same thing here. Now it's probably, we could multiply by 12x here first to get rid of that. But if you do that, you have to be careful because there's a times here and we can't distribute multiplication across this time. So either times the 9 or we times the brackets. We don't do both. Now I would recommend to avoid not double multiplying here is to actually get rid of the brackets first. So times on top. Okay, we don't times the bottom. I've expanded the brackets, and now I'm going to get rid of all this divide. So I'm going to get rid of this divide with a times by 12x. Okay, I'm actually going to write it out like this. I'm going to get rid of the times 4 with a divide 4 with a times 4. Get rid of the divide 3 with a times 3. Get rid of the divide x with a times x. So here I end up with 27 plus. Here I'm just going to group this together. So this is going to be 28 times 12. Okay, so 28 times 12. What does that work out to be? So 28 times 12 gives us 336 x's. So that's a lot of x's there. 336x. This is going to end up being the times 3, divide 3 and divide x is going to cancel out, so I'm just left with 4. And then I end up 8 times 12. Well, 8 times 12 gives me 96 x's. Okay, and then I can combine my like terms, so I'm going to subtract 96 x's from both sides. and I'm going to subtract 27 from both sides. Okay, so when I account for this, I end up with, so this is 96x. So I'm going to end up with, that looks like, what's that going to be? 240 x's. Okay, and that's going to equal negative 23. So my x ends up being negative 23 over 240, and they don't share any common factors.